Hello and welcome back to Great Deltan. Today is part 2 of the Branchline build and we are going to be starting some construction today. We are going to be doing the base of the track and the back scenes in this video. So we're going to be working all the way from that back corner there around here until about midway along the garage door, and that will give us the basis for the terminus station all the way to the halt. First things first though, I need to get rid of this backdrop, which I'll put in temporarily just for some photos and to make things look a bit neater around here. So I'm going to rip all this out because we're going to be putting in a proper back scene. As you can see, this is just a bit rough and ready. So I'll go ahead and rip all this out and then we'll move on to the next stage. Right then, the job we're going to start with is the actual track surface itself. I'm going to build it up using the 12mm plywood that we have here. What I'll do is I'll build the surface just on its own, and I can actually lay it sort of forward of the layout a bit so it's going to be easier to access. Once I've done that, that will then give me the space of which I need to build supports for in order to elevate that. So it's going to be a pretty self-explanatory method of building this surface. I'll cut some lengths of the 12mm plywood. I'm going to have the Branchline baseboard about 120mm wide, and then I'll screw it together all as one, and then I'll join you to explain the next step from there. Right, I have cut some lengths and that is enough to do all the way down to the bottom. Some of these are just piled up here at the minute because what I have now got is the curve. Now I have decided I want a much broader radius realistic curve rather than trying to hide a tight unrealistic one that I could do with set track. So what I've got here is a spirit level, which is of set length, and then I've got this piece of wood here which is exactly the same distance from the far corner as this one. And what I'm going to do is just literally stand in the middle, use the natural rotation of my body and try to do the best curve I can. I've done a few practice attempts just without a pen, and now I'm going to do the real deal. Hopefully it's relatively good, rather than trying to work out God knows how much calculus and maths trying to get it right. I should be able to get a relatively good curve just by standing in the middle of it. So we're going to do that next, and then we can cut the curves out, and then we're getting towards getting a good track base together. Then what I'll do is any spare lengths of this, which I don't use, I can use to cut up and use it as joiners, as obviously I'll need to couple the boards together. I'd rather not use the supports as they're going to be very thin, so I want a good base, try and get the joints as minimal as possible and the same height. Well, I don't think that's gone too badly at all. So we'll cut that to the slightly thicker depth than what's here, because obviously this corner is going to be wasted otherwise. So I can go a little bit further back with the scenery, give it a bit more depth then, and then should be able to put all of this together, and we will have our track base set to go. Right, all of the wood is now cut for the track surface, and we have a nice broad radius curve there, which has turned out quite well just from doing it by natural rotation, and then the surface goes all the way over there. I've also cut all of these small bits which will be used as joiners, so I'll screw that to the underneath of the surface, and that should minimise any discrepancies in the joints. So what I'll do now is I will screw all this together neatly and straight, and then we'll have our finished track surface, and from there we can start to work on the supports for it, which will all be at this point on one level. We just need to ensure that they're nice, straight and level. But you can see that from here I can bring the entire board down to here to work on. That will, I mean, even the radius with it being that broad will only cut in a few inches, so it's still going to be a lot more accessible to work on at the front rather than if it was at the back and higher up. regardless the cat's in here, the surface is now in one piece, and obviously it's a little bit bumpy at the minute because some of the joiners are sitting on the framework cross bracing, but that's gone together really well. It's nice and straight along this one edge, so that's a benefit. And as we come down here, we can see the curve in place, slightly wider around the curve, just for a bit more scenery, and then over here is where the station halt will be. I've stopped it there because I wanted to do a bridge going over a road, so that's obviously going to be not just a flat piece of board. So we'll probably do that in a separate video after the Branchline series is complete, and we'll just get up to there for now. So obviously this is a lot nicer distance to work at, rather than it being at the back on an elevation as well. So I can work on this now, but we're not quite finished yet. Right, so now we're on to going vertical and giving this track base some elevation. As said in the introductory video, this will be the highest point of the layout, as the branch line leading up to this will be on a gradual incline, and it will be set far at the back, and it will have its own back scene, and then coming forward from that will be a separate back scene for the main line. So what I've got here is one of the supports which I have just made, and that is going to sit on all of these cross bracing pieces, apart from if they interfere with the joiners. I'll either skip them or make them 12mm smaller. Depends how well it's going to hold really. It's 12mm ply, so it should be strong enough for what I want, but I don't want it to sag years to come, you know. So I'm going to have to make a load of these, and they'll go all the way along here. I'll make some wider ones for the corner, and some of these same ones to go over by where the station halt will be. That's going to be the next task now. They're going to be attached with some screws just into the bracing directly, with a couple. I made these a little bit wider than they need to be because we've got screws coming into the bracing from the back to join it onto the back length of wood, so I don't want to interfere with the screws. So I can put the screws a bit further in and it'll still hold it nice and strong. So I'm going to get on with that now. Plenty more wood to cut, and then yeah, we can look at lifting it on, making sure it's all good. Obviously I'll be leveling these up as I go with the spirit level and the clamps, just to make sure that they're going to sit completely true and flat. Well, there we have it. That is the track base as it will look. It's not 100% there. I do need to do a little bit of adjustment of the vertical struts just to ensure they are 100% level. Slight discrepancies at the minute, but generally this is going to be how it looks. I also just want to make sure that they're flush with the front of the track base to ensure that when I put the back scene on for the main line, I've got a good base to fix it to and I don't have to mess around trying to level it all. Also need to move the track base forward about 6mm, which is how thick the baseboard for the back scenes are, because they're going to sit behind it to avoid seeing any joints. So that'll be the next job, just leveling these all out, and then we shall move on to the back scene. Okay, well, everything is now leveled up and nice and flush, and I've also installed the last of the back scene board. That one there is just warped to match the curvature of this right hand turn here, and everything is screwed in place ready to go. All of the vertical supports have been brought forward so that they're nice and flush with the track base, and everything's in place. Just move this out the way. You can see right at the bottom end is a class 158. Let me just adjust the camera here. Up there on the end, so it's going to be a decent length branch line, and because it's so high up we're going to be able to get some great views from beneath. Obviously you'll be able to get some views from on top as well, but yeah, that's not quite at the end, but that's sort of relatively where the station will start. I've also decided that I am going to build the branch line with the track base in situ, not forwards, because it's such a long length. It's a little bit flexible, and some of the joints are just a little bit loose. So if I just glue it all to the vertical struts, what I can do then is use the step that I have down here on the floor, but I can also use the board there and literally just sit on the layout and then get better access that way. I still need to do the branch line first because it is at the back end of the layout, but rather than bringing it forward, making it and then lifting it on, risking potential damage, I'm just going to build it where it is and as you see it now. Right, on to back scenes then, which is the last point of this video before we finish. And what I've got here is a back scene by ID Back Scenes, which is a 3-part back scene which has a total length of about 30 feet or around about 10 meters. I wanted a continuous back scene to go across the whole of the back of the branch line rather than having individual ones. I've not had the best history with back scenes, to be fair. On the original Great Deltan Mark I layout in the garden shed, the first experience I had with back scenes was very poor, mainly because I sort of guessed I just stuck some Gauge Master 00 back scenes to a bit of cardboard with a load of PVA glue. The cardboard absorbed the PVA, so did the back scene, and it just looked awful. There was ripples everywhere, the cardboard warped, it wasn't even fixed properly, it was just wedged between the back of the layout and the surface of the Yardmaster shed, so it was a bit of a disaster. I did upgrade them eventually and stuck them on some MDF and actually screwed them to the layout. However, still used PVA, they still rippled a lot. On the last layout I did have a bit of an improvement with back scenes. I used some actual back scene paste by Dulux. That was a bit better, but I still used a bit too much adhesive, I think, because there was quite a few ripples in the back scene. So this time I'm hoping I'm going to learn from my mistakes. I've watched a few videos and here's how I'm going to be doing it. Oh, what we've got here is the back scenes, and this is the N Hills and Dales, which is by ID Back Scenes. About £12 a pack, so around about just under 40 quid for all 3 lengths, and that should stretch all the way from that corner there where the terminus is round to the halt and beyond. To be fair, it should do everything here. I'm going to have to cut it down a little bit because obviously my back scene is quite short. It's only about 15 centimeters high, whereas these are 9 inches. So I'm just going to be taking more or less all of the sky, and then we'll just take it down to about here, and that should give us a nice sort of countryside feel then. I'm going to be using PVA glue which will be watered down a little bit. That has two advantages. Firstly, you can spread it a lot better than just standard PVA, and because it's thinner, it will be a generally thinner film on the wood rather than just bulky thick PVA. And then the second reason is that because it is thinner, it will spread a lot more as well. Wait for it to go tacky, and then I will apply the back scene onto the baseboard. Obviously this would have been a lot easier if the back scenes were flat, because then I could have stuck weights on them. However, then I may have struggled to get them onto the wood without gluing them, so again, I still would have had to press onto it at some point. We'll see how it goes anyway. I'll try the first one. If it's not good, then I will have to take the back seam boards back down, do them flat, and then just glue them to these uprights. However, I know the position that the back seam boards are in right now is completely level, and it's completely square with the surface as well, and flush at the bottom. So let's get on with this, see how it goes, and then we'll come back to you and hopefully we have a finished scene. Well, all of the back scenes are now in. The ones in front of you here are still drying, and the one over here as well, but all of the rest are thoroughly dry and in place. In all honesty, I'm quite disappointed with how they've turned out. Again, they've rippled like no end. There are bumps everywhere. Some of them have turned out a little bit uneven, and they don't look great, but I'm beyond spending any more money on back scenes now. The one down there right at the far end I had to repurchase because I messed it up so badly with the adhesive. It warped to hell and it wasn't sticking. I think I had way too much water in the glue mix, so I had to buy that. The middle section here, I first hand bought the wrong one. The pictures didn't match at all, so I'm not really sure what went wrong there because it had the exact same product code as the one that was actually correct. And then this one over here is probably the best one. I've used very little adhesive. I've let it set off quite a lot to go tacky before I placed it. But when you're working from the side like this, it's actually quite difficult to stick on and get any good adhesion. So I think when I come to do the ones at the front for the main line, I will be doing them flat and then I'll stick them up. Probably should have done that with this one, to be fair, but because I just wanted to get all the boards level and in place solid, I felt it was easier to do the back scenes as it was there in situ. Nevertheless though, they are in. When you look at them face on, they're not too bad. You can't see the ripples as much, but when you look down the layout, it becomes a little bit more obvious. So yeah, not the best job, but it's still doable. I mean, it's not going to be the focal point. Obviously the layout itself will be the main attraction, and this is literally just a backdrop to add a bit more realism and scenery to it. So in the end, I can't complain too much. We're coming towards the end of this video now. What I'm going to do is just wait for these back scenes to dry, and then I will stick the surface on. One job I need to do before I can start track laying and anything like that is just seal the surface with some watered down PVA. Again, plywood is very water resistant, but it's not completely watertight. So when I start to do things like ballasting and gluing, there's a possibility it may absorb a little bit of the glue liquid and fluid, but not to the point where it will warp as bad as MDF. But still, I'll put a little bit of PVA on top just to give it a nice protective film, and it should benefit the adhesion as well for when I start actually doing some scenery and track laying. Right, well, there we have it. Back scene and track base are complete. We are officially ready for track laying. The back scenes over the far end of the layout here have dried and they do look a little bit better now. That's the thing, the wrinkling is almost always the worst when the glue is wet or tacky, but when it dries the moisture reduces and it does even out a little bit. So things are looking quite good, and yeah, we've just got one continuous scene here with no visible breaks. The joints are quite well hidden, and yeah, I'm quite happy with how things have turned out, and we have a good base now for getting on with some layout building. So thanks for watching and your continued support and following of this layout. Next time, when I bring you another video, it will be with some track. So again, thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.